Hello everybody and welcome to my review of volume number 7 in Jin's light novel series Kagerou Daze. Now I've put this one off for a little bit, I think mainly because this is for the longest time, for almost a year and a half now, this has been the last volume that was put out in Japan for Kagerou Daze, and I knew that it ended on a cliffhanger. And so I was kind of waiting to see what was going to happen. Would the series continue? They've now announced that volume number 8, which is going to be the last book in the series, is going to be releasing at the end of this month in Japan. Given that it's a physical release done by Yanon, I figure we probably won't see volume 8 in English until the middle of next year. But nonetheless, it seemed like a good time that I should go ahead and read this volume. In this volume, we have two sort of concurrent we have two storylines going on at the same time. The first one is the background story of Kido, the leader of the Mekakucity Dawn. And also it is the more present term where the members of the Mekakucity Dawn have sort of finally pieced together that they actually do have an antagonist, an opponent in Kido and Kano's and their adoptive father. They assume that it's actually that he has been possessed by a dark entity that possesses the power of the eyes. And so they are about to go and confront him and to try and defeat him so that they can avoid pretty much what's being set up as a pretty tragic end for all of them. Now, I have to say that over the course of these 7 books, Jin has really progressed as a writer. In the first book, I was a little iffy on the series. I thought that, there was some okay ideas in it, but the writing I didn't think was that strong. The one character in particular I felt was kind of annoying. Now, all of those things have gotten progressively better. The pacing has gotten better. In the first book, we had the same events but told from 2 separate characters' point of views. In this one, and like some of the fews that are before this, instead of splitting the book evenly half and half, because there's been a couple storylines going on, we're getting alternating chapters in these storylines. So I found that the pacing overall in this series has improved a lot. I also like the fact with this volume that it really feels finally like the story's going somewhere. We've spent a lot of time about backstory. We've spent a lot of time with sort of bringing these characters together, getting a little bit of an idea of what happened to them before and shortly after they got these abilities. This one finally starts giving us some long-held answers. What is the Kagerou Daze? How are these people getting these abilities? What is the characteristic of why they were brought into the Kagerou Daze, and how did they escape? All of these questions are finally answered in this volume. And of course, now the Mekakucity Dawn are taking action, using their abilities in order to try and accomplish something that ultimately they feel could be their salvation as a group. So this book finally feels, it feels a bit more light novelish, to be honest. I mean, this series has been always felt very kind of disjointed a bit. And I think that's partly because there is such a large number of media involved in telling this story. There's the anime, which is actually what Mekakucity Dance, I don't even know what it's called. It's not even called Kagerou Daze. It's, I think it's Mekakucity Actors or something like that. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. So there's an anime, there's a manga. Of course, Jin is basing all of this on a series of Vocaloid songs and albums. So there's all this different media, and if you talk to a number of people who have seen the anime, read manga, read some of the light novels, it sounds almost like the only way to really get a complete picture of what's going on is to consume all of that media. So when you're reading just the light novels, which is what I've been doing, the series has always felt a little bit disjunct. And it's not really detrimental, like I've still enjoyed the series. I think it's more of, I think my enjoyment of the series has been more in terms of waiting for the reveals, sort of the fact that the story does keep kind of feeling like it's taking you left when you expected it to go right. I can't say that I have any real affection for the characters. That's probably one of the biggest failings of this series. And I think that's mainly just because we jump around to so many characters. And, you know, when you're engaged in that character's story, like I said, a lot of these have talked about the backstories of each particular character the last couple volumes. When I'm into that story, I'm into that character. I'm interested in that character. But the fact that we so quickly move away from that character in the next volume or in the other sort of storylines that are going on, I just don't feel like it helps me connect with the characters a lot. I also think too, because I've just gone with a lot of gaps between reading this series. I've said it before. I know I've said it before because I always feel that way when I read one of these books. I really think that this is one of those series that could benefit from a binge read. And they're really not like, I mean, they're like 125, 130 pages. They're very short. They're probably the shortest light novels that we have currently getting published. So it's not like it's a massive investment to read one of these volumes. I really think though that the experience of reading this all collected together would be very different and perhaps much more satisfying than the way that I've been reading it with, you know, months and what, dozens of light novels in between each of the volumes. So this volume, as I said, it's probably like is it the strongest volume? I don't know if I would say it's the best volume in the series so far, but in terms of feeling like we're getting somewhere, in terms of feeling like we're actually getting answers as opposed to just more questions, this book really finally satisfies that. And I think that's why I'm liking it, because, you know, it really does feel like we're coming to a head with all of this, and that you always have that sort of anxiety that you're not going to get the answers that you want. And so to have this book start to wrap a lot of things up, explain a lot of things, Kido's story basically reveals a lot of stuff within it. Having the characters feel like they're finally doing something, not just kind of listlessly not knowing which way to go. All of these things made this volume a lot more engaging, a lot more interesting. Kido's story is incredibly sad and horrifying, which, you know, is bad for her. But I mean, as a reader, it's a good experience because it really just drags you and pulls you, keeps pulling you forward. So all in all, I would say that volume number 7 of Kagerou Daze, a really strong entry in this series, certainly doing exactly what it should be, being sort of the second last novel in the series, giving us a lot of the answers that we've wanted. It's probably one of the more readable volumes because of that, and because the stories, the two stories that are happening within it, are so clearly set apart, one being the past, one being the current present. I still say, though, that if this is a series that you haven't started reading, but you seem kind of interested in, you think it sounds kind of cool, I really think that I would really suggest that you wait until volume 8 is released in English and then pick them all up and read them a lot closer together than I did. I find that when I'm starting these books, it takes me a while to kind of get into it and kind of figure out, like, who was that character again? I don't remember that person, because there's a lot of characters. And because there's been so much different things going on, and in so many different timelines and everything else, I just think that this is not really a series that benefits from being set aside for a long time between volumes. So if you haven't picked it up, I highly recommend that you read it all at once. It is kind of an interesting series. It's very unlike pretty much any other light novel that we have in English. And I mean, certainly I've enjoyed the book enough that I'm thinking once I finish the 8th volume, I'm probably going to sit down and like watch the anime and maybe at least see if I can YouTube some of the songs that these are based on. Hopefully somebody's done like subtitles on them. If you have some links, feel free to throw those in the comments down below for anybody who's interested. So all in all, volume number 7 of Kagerou Daze, if you've liked the series to date, I think this is a really strong volume and finally gives us a ton of answers that we've been waiting for. If you have not picked up this series, I do think it's worth a read, but like I said, I would wait until volume 8 comes out, and then I would binge the series, because I think it'll be a lot more satisfying and make a lot more sense over the whole of it if you're not left with a ton of time in between where you're forgetting sort of fine and small details. So those are my thoughts on volume number 7 of Kagerou Daze. My next review is going to be on a brand new volume number 1 of a series that's being released by J Novel Club. Just came out a couple days ago, and that is How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. It's a very bright cover, so it's probably reflecting. It's hard to see. But anyway, this one, an isekai about a gamer who is summoned to another world in his game Persona. And the two girls who summoned him try to enslave him, but instead end up getting enslaved to him. Hilarity ensues. Well, I don't know if it's hilarious. It's probably more eshy than that. But anyway, that'll be my next review. So if you love light novels and you're brand new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. I do 2 to 3 reviews every single week, as well as a weekly countdown of the top 10 best-selling light novels in Japan. Thank you so much for joining me in this video, and I look forward to seeing the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.